When we have the same resentments all the time, it's suggestive of the fact that there is a pattern that requires healing within us, that healing that could hold the key to the relationship you've always wanted. Because by the way, you'll never, like I said, by changing these patterns and healing these wounds, you will find yourself in a place where better and better relationships are available to you, because people will start to see you. You'll start to attract a different quality of person. You'll start to attract someone who sees that you respect yourself. You'll start to sculpt the kind of relationship that you want. But we deny ourselves these relationships, and we wonder why it is I keep running into people who take me for granted.
Mm-hmm. This is something I used to do in relationships. I used to think that everyone in the world thought the same way as me, essentially. Mm-hmm. That if I'm attracting this person, they must think similar to me. They must want to give like me. They may want to be thinking about me the way I think about them. They may want to be generous the way I'm trying to be generous, and therefore thinking they're going to be similar with their generosity like me. But when it wouldn't happen, I would get frustrated and be like, why aren't they giving the way that I'm giving? So I had an expectation, right? And this expectation left me feeling frustrated, resentful, confused, whatever it might be. And because I lacked the ability to communicate my standards through hard conversations, the relationships never worked. I'm sure there's many other flaws that I had why those relationships didn't work, but that was one thing that left me feeling frustrated, not only in intimacy, but also in friendships or business relationships, where I was like, I'm going to show up a certain way, and I have an expectation that other people show up a certain way. Or if I'm going to be generous in one way, I have an expectation that if I do something for someone else, that they would be just thoughtful in similar ways and be as generous. And when some people did that, but not everyone. And so it left me feeling frustrated more times than not, because I had an expectation, as opposed to just communicating, okay, here's what I'm all about, and here's what I value. Here's my values, here's my standards. Or not having any expectations at all, and being the generous person and not being resentful if there's not a standard met in return, and being okay with that. And so I've had to learn the hard way of like making sure that I either don't have expectations in certain friendships, business relationships, intimacy, or communicate with hard conversations and see if someone can meet that standard.
And that's the interesting thing. That's where romantic relationships hold this strange sort of space of their own, because there's things you can do with other relationships that take all of that pressure out of it. With business relationships or certain friendships, maybe you're not your very closest friends, but with people who are kind of on the outskirts of your core circle, you can have few expectations, because you say, when I'm with this person, I have a great time. They don't really show up for me in meaningful ways in my life, but they're fun company when we get to have it. And that's okay, because I got other people. I've got a handful of core people in my life that really do show up when it matters.
Yes.
I don't need that from this person, so I don't have to have any expectations. And if I give to this person, I'm just going to know the deal, that I'm going to give to this person, but I'm going to expect nothing back, because I know that probably I won't get it back from this person. Our intimate relationships hold a special place of power in our lives, because they tend to be the person we have the most proximity to on a daily basis. It's the person that we expect the most from, and it's the person that we can't meet certain needs elsewhere, right? It's not like sexually you go, well, if this person doesn't meet all of my needs, I'll go elsewhere, and I'll mix it up and spread it around. Like, it's not like that. So we have certain rules in place for most monogamous relationships that say that there are certain things that it's inappropriate for me to get elsewhere.
Yes.
And even if that's not the case, because that's not the case with many of our needs, it's still the case that this is the person I'm going to invest the most time and energy into, and the most love into, and the most of myself into. And so if that's the case, by definition, is the relationship that has to come with the most reciprocity.
Yes.
It can't be a one-sided thing because of how much I am required to give to this relationship, how much I'm prepared to give to this relationship. So
that's why you got to communicate the hard things, express them.
You have to. And look, you're right. People are different. We're not all the same in relationships, and you might really like this and she really likes that, and they're different. But it's why I think compromise is important. Where might we be able to give each other a bit more of what we want? But it's also the thing that I think people fail to do a lot is view their romantic relationships holistically. So I might not get this thing as much as I want, but it's like if you really like phone calls, right? And your partner, when they go on a trip, you don't really hear from them because it's just not like, for them, sitting on the phone, it just doesn't lend itself to their communication style. So they'll text you, but like being away and then sitting on the phone for an hour just isn't, it's just not their natural thing. So you could try and force it, but most times it just feels a bit forced.
Yes.
Well, if that person in every other way is an incredible partner, and when they're with you, they are so present, and they text you, it's not like they leave you, they don't ghost you on texts. There's a back and forth through texts. They'll send you pictures of where they are and what they're up to. They might leave you a loving voice note. And, the big and, you're in a relationship that's not long distance. In other words, the majority of the time you're together. It just so happens that sometimes they have to take trips without you for work or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then it's like, this is all right. I'm loved.
Yeah, of course.
I feel loved in this relationship. I don't need them to try to be good at this thing that they're not good at or they don't feel natural at.
Yeah.
Because I get my needs met. On the whole, I do get my needs met. Would it be nice if they enjoyed sitting on the phone as long as I did? Maybe, but it's okay.
Yeah.
If now start adding in variables, and you can quickly see how justifying that can become a problem. Let's say that this person also isn't good at texting. Let's say that this person's work takes them away for half the time. Now you might have a real problem. Mm-hmm. Because you're not together 50% of the time. You're someone who values closeness. Phone calls were a way that you felt close, but fine, you would have settled for messages and pictures and just feeling a little bit involved in their day. But you don't even feel that. And now they're away half the time. You're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
So it's viewing these things holistically. No one is ever going to be 100% of everything you needed a person to be. And there are always going to be differences.
Seeing
but
the whole picture, yeah.
When we ignore the fact that our needs are getting met less of the time than, they're not being met more of the time than they are, and you're ignoring that, then you're unhappy.
Yeah.